The transmission began with the sound of drums, ceremonial, resonant, self-important. The kind of noise empires make when they are trying to sound like gods. On every inhabited world, from the frozen domes of Vorax 6 to the floating markets of Kithra Prime, screens lit up with the sigil of the Zintherian Empire, a crimson spiral devouring a blue star. 1,000 alien species tuned in to witness what was supposed to be the formal extinction notice of a small, troublesome species from a forgotten spiral arm. Humanity. Archduke Vraxtel, High Commander of the 7th Conquest Armada, appeared in full regalia, an obsidian exoskeleton trimmed in molten gold. His voice, dry and mechanical, carried the weight of centuries of arrogance. To the surviving fragments of the human confederation, he declared, his mandibles clicking like blades, the Empire offers you mercy. You have 2 hours to surrender unconditionally. Failure to comply will result in the sterilization of your system. The message ended with the Empire's anthem, a cold, metallic hum that sounded more like machinery breathing than music. Across the galaxy, laughter followed. Humanity's warships were gone, their colonies scattered. The Empire's analysts predicted full compliance within the hour. They were wrong. On the outer rim of the Orion Rift, aboard the Zintherian flagship Tyrant's Promise, the alien officers prepared for their ceremonial surrender broadcast. An escort ship approached, a human vessel, old, small, unarmed. The aliens mocked it even before it docked. Pathetic, sneered Commander Keth, his voice like the grinding of stones. They send a courier instead of an envoy. Typical mammals, always underestimating protocol. Archduke Vrax merely adjusted his claws. Perhaps it's a last attempt at dignity. The airlock hissed open. A single human stepped through. No guards. No entourage. Just one man in a worn black suit and a weathered trench coat that looked absurdly out of place amid the Empire's gleaming metallic corridors. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and very still, the kind of stillness that comes from absolute confidence or absolute madness. John Mikhailson. He introduced himself politely. His accent was faintly Russian, his tone disarmingly mild. I'm here on behalf of humanity. The officers exchanged glances. They had expected a trembling diplomat, not this calm, vaguely amused figure. Vrax studied him. You're their negotiator. John smiled faintly. Something like that. He took a seat at the long obsidian table without invitation, setting a small metal coin beside his cup. Before we begin, he said, I'd like a cup of coffee. Black. No sugar. Stirred clockwise twice, not 3 times. I'm particular that way. The aliens blinked. The request was bizarre. Keth muttered, this creature thinks he's at a cafe. But the Archduke was curious. He ordered the drink. As the human sipped, his eyes wandered around the room, taking in every reflection, every panel seam, every vent. He looked, not nervous, but quietly entertained. 2 hours, was it? John asked after a moment. Yes, Vrax said. Though you could save us all the trouble by surrendering now. John leaned back, nodding thoughtfully. 2 hours. Generous. You won't need it. Laughter erupted around the table. Even Vrax's mandibles twitched in amusement. Bold words from a doomed species. Not doomed, John corrected calmly. Selective. He smiled as though sharing a private joke. You'll understand in about 120 seconds. The Archduke's amusement faded. You come here unarmed, in a relic of a ship, and threaten an empire. Threaten. John seemed genuinely puzzled. No, I'm simply answering your message. You gave humanity 2 hours to surrender. I'm giving you 2 minutes to reconsider. Keth slammed a clawed hand on the table. You dare mock us. John raised a hand politely, interrupting. Not mocking, clarifying. He took another sip. See, the thing about humans is, we tend to get nervous when given ultimatums. Makes us do creative things. The lights flickered. Subtle, almost imperceptible. The Imperial officers froze. Vrax's mandibles clicked once. Explain that. John set his cup down. Oh, don't mind that. Just a signal distortion. Your ships are still operational, for now. A technician whispered to the Archduke. Sir, we're receiving anomalous feedback in our network, unknown code patterns. Trace it, Vrax snapped. John chuckled softly. Good luck. You're trying to trace ghosts. We wrote them centuries ago. Vrax narrowed his eyes. What are you? Human, John replied simply. But some of us have hobbies. The command deck's main hologram flared to life, showing a tactical grid. One by one, red icons representing Xantherian vessels began blinking yellow. The technician stammered. Sir, their systems are responding to external commands. They are firing up power cores on their own. Impossible. Keth barked. John looked at his watch. 1 minute, 40 seconds. You're doing fine. Vrax rose from his throne-like chair, towering over the human. What did you do? John's expression was almost apologetic. Nothing you didn't start first. You see, we never liked ultimatums. We find they complicate our mornings. The Archduke's claw hovered over the command console. Deactivate all ship networks. Too late, John said softly. You centralized your systems last decade. Faster coordination. You said. Efficiency. That's the thing about efficiency, Archduke. It makes everything so beautifully connected. The technicians scrambled, shouting over one another. The entire bridge trembled as the fleet outside began to shift position. On the holographic display, the Empire's ships turned their guns inward. Vrax lunged forward, claws bared. You'll die for this. John calmly slid his coffee aside. Already did once. Didn't take. The Archduke froze. Something in the man's eyes, the cold, patient inevitability, made him hesitate. A low hum filled the air. The ship's AI began reciting old Earth phrases in a distorted tone. Be seeing you, be seeing you, be seeing you. John stood, straightening his coat. That would be your fleet initializing my little gift. We call it Protocol Wick. Protocol. Vrax began, but the rest was drowned by the rising crescendo of alarms. John looked down at the glowing coin he'd left on the table. It pulsed softly with golden light. 2 minutes exactly, he murmured. Perfect timing. He turned to leave. Oh, and Archduke, about that mercy you offered. You might want to save it for yourselves. The last thing Vrax saw before the deck erupted in fire was a human's calm silhouette, coat fluttering as he walked into the smoke. Outside, the Empire's armada began to turn on itself in a synchronized ballet of destruction. Ships collided, reactors detonated, the void itself seemed to ripple. Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast in horrified silence. The human didn't look back. He stepped aboard his small vessel, setting his coffee down in its holder. As the engines hummed to life, he spoke into the comm, his voice casual. Message delivered. Starting the clock. The screen behind him flickered with the Empire's sigil before dissolving into static. 2 hours had been offered. 2 minutes were enough. The bridge of the tyrant's promise shuddered as though it were inhaling fear. Every console flickered in erratic pulses, every display spitting static-laced data that no longer made sense. Archduke Vraxtel barked orders that went unheeded, his officers scrambling in growing panic. Outside the viewport, the vast Xantherian fleet hung in perfect formation, until one ship, then another, began to drift from its assigned vector, weapons slowly swiveling toward their own allies. John Mikhailson stood quietly at the edge of the chaos, watching. The calm in his posture was obscene, as if the destruction around him was nothing more than a mildly interesting weather pattern. The gold coin on the obsidian table pulsed once, again, and again, like a heartbeat out of sync with the rest of the universe. He picked it up, turning it thoughtfully between his fingers. Vraxtel rounded on him. What have you done to my ships? John didn't look up. Technically, nothing. You did this to yourselves. I just accelerated the process. Explain yourself, ape. Ah, John said softly, and there it is. The word you people love. Ape. Primitive. Violent. You see, Archduke, we've been called a lot worse. But we learn fast, especially when someone points a gun at us. He flipped the coin. It landed on its edge and stayed upright, humming faintly. A ripple passed through the deck plating. Several officers stumbled, one of them crying out as his console sparked. Our targeting systems are misaligned. Correction, John murmured. They are very aligned. Just Not with you. Through the viewport, the fleet's crimson engine flares turned ghostly white. The formation disintegrated. Hundreds of ships now faced each other, their plasma batteries charging autonomously. To anyone watching from orbit, it must have looked like choreography, violence arranged with the grace of a ballet. Vraxtel slammed a clawed hand into his throne's control interface, slicing through it. Deactivate everything. Cut power to the neural grid. Already tried, John said without looking up. Your engineers centralized all command inputs through the Nexus core 2 years ago. You should really fire whoever designed that. Well, he gave a small shrug, metaphorically speaking. The literal kind of firing might be redundant soon. Keth, the secondary officer, snarled. You're bluffing. No species could breach the Nexus. It's quantum protected. John smiled faintly. We wrote the quantum layer. The words landed like a physical blow. The room fell silent except for the distant hum of systems seizing under unseen control. Ketha's voice dropped to a whisper. You're saying humans built our encryption. Not built. Contributed. John corrected. Decades ago, you needed faster computation for galactic logistics. Your scientists bought a framework from one of our corporations, something called Chrono Systems. Harmless little company. We let you integrate it. Quietly. He looked up then, eyes like twin razors. You ever wonder why humans stopped expanding after the 23rd century? We didn't retreat. We went underground. We stopped fighting wars and started writing the rules. An explosion rippled through the distant fleet. The bridge windows dimmed automatically to protect their eyes, though nothing could shield them from the sound of 1,000 alarms echoing through the hall. John tapped the comms panel with casual precision. Control, this is WIC Actual. Network confirmed compromised. Recommend initiating candlelight phase. A faint voice answered from somewhere in the static. Acknowledged. Candlelight in progress. Estimated duration, 58 seconds. The aliens froze. Vraxtel's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Who are you talking to? There is no signal leaving this ship. There is, John said. It's just not using your channels. He gestured lazily toward the viewport. Ever heard of neutrino band communication? No, I suppose you wouldn't have needed it. Not until now. He began pacing, hands clasped behind his back, his voice taking on a conversational tone, the kind used by a man explaining a recipe. See, back home we have this old rule, don't pick a fight you can't end before breakfast. So, when your fleet threatened to sterilize our lost colony, we decided to make it quick. 2 minutes. That's how long it takes to brew a decent cup of coffee. Efficiency matters. Keth lunged forward, roaring, but John sidestepped effortlessly. His hand flicked once, and the officer's weapon discharged harmlessly into the ceiling. Sparks rained down as Keth fell, twitching. John sighed. Always with the dramatics. You aliens could really use some breathing exercises. Vraxtel was shaking, rage and fear bleeding into one another. You're insane. Probably, John admitted. But so was every human who ever changed history. The bridge lighting dimmed again, replaced by an eerie red glow. The ship's AI stuttered, then began speaking in a voice that was no longer entirely mechanical. Candlelight initiated. Purge cycle in progress. John checked his watch. 1 minute left. Outside, the fleet erupted into pandemonium. Ships collided, detonating into silent bursts of light. Others spun helplessly, their own energy weapons carving through friendly formations. The galactic broadcast still running across the Empire's networks captured every moment in perfect clarity, an entire armada consuming itself while one solitary human stood on the command deck, sipping the last of his coffee. Vraxtel's voice was a strangled rasp. Why? Why warn us at all? Why not simply destroy us instantly? John's expression softened, almost kind. Because warnings are polite, and humans are nothing if not polite. He set his cup down gently. Besides, I wanted you to see it. To understand that you weren't fighting soldiers. You were provoking an ecosystem. The Archduke staggered back into his throne. You can't hold this power forever. The galaxy will unite against you. John smiled thinly. That's the idea. It keeps us entertained. The bridge trembled harder now, the sound of rending metal echoing through every corridor. John turned toward the viewport, watching the fireworks in silence. The explosions painted his reflection in bursts of gold and crimson, the light crawling across his face like slow lightning. A voice crackled through the comms again. "Wick actual, candlelight complete. 2 minutes on the mark. Full containment confirmed." John nodded once. "Copy that." He faced Vrax one last time. "Your 2 hours are up, Archduke. I told you you'd only need 2 minutes. Then he pressed a small switch on his wrist. The entire ship's artificial gravity inverted for an instant, flinging alien officers from their stations. As the core ruptured, John's ship detached automatically, sliding away from the doomed flagship like a phantom leaving a corpse. Through the viewport, Vraxtel saw him glance back once, calm, indifferent, almost regretful. Then the tyrant's promise split apart in a silent bloom of light. Inside his shuttle, John exhaled slowly, eyes half-lidded, voice steady as he spoke into the comm again. "That's one empire down. Coffee break's over." The stars outside shimmered, reflecting the first quiet second after annihilation, a silence deeper than fear and far more permanent. The first second after candlelight ignited was silence, heavy, electric silence that held its breath before the universe began to scream. Then came light. Not the ordinary kind, but blinding ribbons of plasma, energy tearing across the void in perfect arcs of destruction. The Xantherian fleet, the most disciplined war machine in the galaxy, folded into chaos with mechanical precision. Every ship turned on its neighbor as if choreographed by an unseen conductor. John Mikhailson watched it all from the viewport of his shuttle, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. His eyes, calm and almost sorrowful, reflected the burning constellation that had once been an empire. For a man who'd just orchestrated the obliteration of 30,000 warships, he looked disturbingly tranquil. His AI companion broke the silence first. "Casualty projections exceed 98%. You appear satisfied, sir." "Not satisfied," John said softly. "Validated." He leaned back in the pilot seat, glancing at the holodisplay streaming the galactic news feeds. Every major network was broadcasting the same impossible image, the Xantherian flagship burning while a lone human vessel drifted away, unharmed. Across the galaxy, aliens were losing their collective minds. On the central world of the Empire, trillions watched in disbelief. Panic began to ripple through the noble houses. The aristocrats who toasted humanity's final extinction an hour earlier were now watching their fleets implode under their own command codes. In the halls of the Xantherian Senate, the great strategists screamed for answers that no one could give. "Impossible," one shouted. "A species with no interstellar empire cannot control our fleets." "They can," whispered another. "They just did." Back on the burning edge of the Orion Rift, Vraxtel's transmission, his proud ultimatum, still echoed across the networks. But now, his voice was overlaid with the shriek of alarms and the roar of detonations. Every surviving crew in the Empire heard his desperate last words, "Shut it down." "For the love of," then static. John sighed faintly. "They never learn. Empires always think they are invincible right before they prove they are not." The AI flickered again. "Should I relay the broadcast message, sir?" John nodded. "Send it." Across the void, the human signal replaced every Imperial feed. The screen flickered, and there he was, sitting in the pilot's chair, sleeves rolled up, coffee cup still in hand. His tone light, conversational, almost friendly. "Good evening, Galaxy," he began. "John Mikhailson here. Some of you might know me by a different name, though it's mostly a human thing. Baba Yaga, the boogeyman." A pause. A faint smile. "I heard someone gave humanity 2 hours to surrender. That was cute. But you see, we humans have a saying, never give us a countdown. We take that personally." Every broadcast point, from the frozen colonies of the Varan to the methane towers of the Trinex, went silent. The universe listened. John continued. "Now, before anyone starts panicking, let me be clear. Humanity doesn't want a war. We just want to be left alone. But for some reason, every few centuries, someone gets the bright idea that we're easy prey. Maybe it's because we laugh too much or we make movies about ourselves dying heroically. Maybe it's because we seem fragile. But what you all forget is that fragility is how we survive. We break, adapt, and rebuild faster than anyone else. He leaned closer to the camera. His eyes were calm, but behind them flickered something primal, something ancient. We don't conquer galaxies. We conquer the need to quit. That's our weapon. The AI cut the transmission back to local feeds. Outside, the 2-minute mark approached. The first wave of explosions reached critical mass. Entire battle groups imploded as their fusion cores destabilized. The light was so bright that neighboring star systems could see it as a false dawn. John adjusted the autopilot and poured himself another cup of coffee. "Always 2 minutes," he murmured. "Long enough to decide if you regret something. Short enough that no one can stop it." The AI's voice softened, almost hesitant. "May I ask something personal, sir?" "Go ahead." "Why warn them at all? Why tell them it was coming?" John looked out the window again. "Because fear without understanding is wasted. I want them to understand what happens when they push humanity too far. The warning makes it poetic." "Poetic," the AI echoed. He nodded. "Every empire that's ever threatened Earth thought it was writing our ending. Turns out, we're the editors." The ship shuddered slightly as a shockwave passed through the void. John didn't flinch. He'd seen worse: Earth's skies burning during the Last War, the silence of Luna's ghost cities, the day humanity decided that peace wasn't a survival strategy. 2 minutes, he whispered again, watching a cluster of Xantherian cruisers implode. "It's always enough time." The AI reported calmly. "Transmission intercepts indicate widespread surrender declarations. The Senate is attempting to contact us." John smiled faintly. "They'll try to negotiate. They'll promise treaties, reparations, maybe even grovel. It's adorable, really. But they need to see this through first." The tyrant's promise, once a symbol of Xantherian power, was now a dying sun. Its fragments glittered like glass shards, spinning into the dark. The energy wave from its core rippled outward, erasing the Empire's own fleets with ruthless impartiality. And yet, amid all that destruction, John felt no joy. Only inevitability. Humanity's vengeance wasn't about rage, it was balance. The universe had made its wager, and lost. The AI flickered again. "Incoming hail from the Xantherian capital. Shall I decline?" John hesitated, then shook his head. "Patch it through." A holographic projection materialized, a panicked alien counselor, eyes wide with disbelief. "Human, cease your attack. You'll destroy everything." John's tone was maddeningly calm. "Not everything, just the parts that need reminding. You can't control chaos forever." John tilted his head. "That's the thing. We don't control it. We are it." The counselor screamed something in his native tongue before the signal cut out, consumed by static. The AI counted down quietly. 10 seconds to completion. John stood, straightened his coat, and stared into the inferno one last time. "Goodbye, Archduke. Goodbye, Empire." At 0, the universe blinked white. For a brief, beautiful moment, there was only light, 1,000 suns igniting at once, painting the darkness in gold and crimson. Then it was gone. The Xantherian armada ceased to exist. In its place remained silence. The kind of silence that carries history. John sat back down, setting his empty cup aside. "And that," he said to no one in particular, "is why you never give a human a deadline." The AI responded quietly, almost reverently. "Candlelight phase complete. The Empire has been neutralized." He smiled faintly. Neutralized. That's one way to put it. He leaned back, closing his eyes as the stars drifted by. "I suppose we just gave the galaxy a bedtime story." "Will they believe it?" the AI asked. "They'll try not to," John murmured. "But they'll remember. Every time they see a human smile, they'll wonder what it's hiding." The shuttle drifted on, leaving behind a graveyard of fire and silence. Somewhere, in the deep dark between stars, humanity had just rewritten the rules again. And the galaxy, terrified, awestruck, and newly educated, would never mistake kindness for weakness ever again. The smoke had no place to settle in space, but somehow it lingered. The wreckage of the Xantherian armada hung like a constellation of ghosts, every twisted hull fragment glowing faintly from residual plasma burns. It looked almost peaceful now. An artist's impression of apocalypse. John Mikhailson stood by the viewport of his shuttle, a silhouette against the soft radiance of the ruin. The war was over. Or maybe it had only just begun. His AI, still faintly flickering from the electromagnetic fallout, broke the silence. All signals from the Xantherian command systems have ceased. Long-range scans indicate total systemic collapse. John nodded slightly. Empires fall faster than they rise. Always have. Would you like to issue a final statement, sir? The galactic networks are still relaying your transmission. Billions are listening. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned back toward the pilot seat and retrieved his cup of coffee, now cold. He swirled it absently, studying the dark liquid like it might contain a prophecy. No, he said finally. Let the silence speak for now. They'll fill it with fear, and that's enough. The AI hesitated, then asked, "Is that fear what you wanted?" John's eyes flicked toward the remnants of the Empire's flagship, its shattered carcass drifting lazily. Want isn't the right word. Needed, maybe. They needed to remember what humanity is capable of when someone gives us a reason. He sank into the pilot's chair and watched the stars crawl past. Out there, new alliances were already forming. Some species would rally against humanity, others would try to negotiate peace, a few would simply hide. The cycle would repeat, as it always did. But now, the galaxy knew. They'd seen what humans could do in 2 minutes of fury. Transmission intercept, the AI said suddenly. Non-hostile frequency. Origin, Earth. That made him pause. Earth rarely called him anymore. Too much bureaucracy. Too many committees trying to leash the very monster they created. Patch it through. The holoscreen blinked, revealing a woman in uniform, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, and calm in a way only veterans could be. General Harper, humanity's official voice. Mikhailson, she said without greeting. You've made quite a statement. John arched an eyebrow. Didn't realize I was giving a speech. You destroyed a galactic empire on live broadcast. I'd call that more than a speech. He gave a small, humorless smile. They started the countdown. I just finished it early. Harper's face didn't change. The council is divided. Some think you're a hero. Others think you're a liability. Liability, John repeated, tasting the word. Always nice to know my reputation's consistent. You understand what comes next, Harper continued. The galaxy will either submit or retaliate. You've bought us time, but at a cost. Billions of lives, human or not, just changed trajectory because of you. John leaned forward, elbows on his knees. General, you remember the siege of Titan, when they bombed the refugee domes? Her gaze flickered, just for a second. I do. Then you know why I don't lose sleep over alien politics. We asked for peace. We begged for coexistence. What we got was genocide wrapped in diplomacy. I just made sure they'd think twice before trying again. Harper was silent for a long moment. Then she said quietly, You think fear will keep us safe? John's eyes softened. No, but it'll buy us quiet long enough to rebuild. Sometimes that's all peace really is, a pause between fires. The connection crackled, and she gave a small, resigned nod. The council will call for you soon. They'll want explanations, strategies, assurances. Tell them I'm retired, he said dryly. Again. You don't retire, John. You reload. That earned the faintest smile from him. Guess old habits die harder than empires. The holofeed blinked out. For a while, there was only the hum of the ship and the distant whisper of space debris brushing the hull. The stars outside seemed quieter now, as if even they were reluctant to speak after what they'd witnessed. Course, sir, the AI prompted gently. John thought about it. Home, he said finally. Earth. Navigation systems are stable. Estimated arrival, 57 hours. He closed his eyes. Plenty of time for a nap. But he didn't sleep. Not yet. His mind wandered, through the faces of the fallen, the wars fought and forgotten, the times humanity had stood alone and smiled anyway. The galaxy had always misunderstood that smile. They thought it was arrogance. It wasn't. It was a smile of something that had already survived extinction once and knew how to do it again. He glanced out the window at the faint shimmer of the destroyed fleet. "We warned them," he murmured. "We always warn them." The AI responded softly, "And they never listen." "Exactly." He tilted his head, almost amused. "They see a human and think, fragile, emotional, predictable. But we're just playing a different game. Always have been." Hours later, when he finally closed his eyes, his dreams weren't filled with fire or screaming. They were filled with silence, the kind of silence that follows resolution. A world without countdowns, without ultimatums. Just quiet. When he woke, the ship was gliding through a nebula, soft violet light washing across the cockpit. Earth's coordinates glowed faintly on the display. The AI spoke again. Incoming message from multiple systems. It appears to be a mixture of surrender notices and requests for alliance. He chuckled softly. "Of course. Empires fall, markets open. That's the human way. Will you respond?" "Eventually. Let them sweat for a while." He sipped from a new cup of coffee, the old one finally cold beyond salvation. "They need to learn patience." The AI hesitated. "And if they come for revenge?" John stared out at the nebula, the faint smile returning to his face. "Then I'll remind them." "Remind them of what?" "That extinction is a two-way street." The stars ahead shimmered, breaking apart into threads of light as the ship entered warp. Behind him, the graveyard of the Xantherian Empire faded into the dark, a monument to arrogance, a warning written in plasma and steel. As the shuttle vanished into the fold of hyperspace, the galaxy collectively exhaled, realizing too late that the man they'd called Baba Yaga wasn't just a soldier. He was a message. A reminder that the universe's most dangerous predator wasn't the one with the biggest fleet, it was the one that smiled while holding the match. And somewhere, as the stars stretched into lines, John Mikhailson whispered to himself, voice soft as ash, 2 hours to surrender. 2 minutes to end it. Fair trade. Then he closed his eyes and let the hum of the engines lull him home, leaving behind a galaxy that would never, ever forget the day it learned to fear the kindness of humans.